morning children, welcome to online class. This is Sheila, your computer application teacher. Today we are going to see lesson 12, DNS. DNS stands for Domain Name System. See, in earlier days what happened is, when they wanted to access the internet, what they do is, instead of giving www.google.com and all, they were just giving IP addresses 192.168.5.2, just like that. There will be some versions for specifying each and every website. So they will be giving that IP address and they will be accessing it. So what happened was, it was very difficult for them to remember all the IP address. Say for example, if we wanted to access the phone, and if no names are going to be saved and if there is going to be only numbers, will it be easy for you to memorize all the phone numbers? It is not possible, isn't it? So what happened? We started using names. We started saving the phone numbers in names, such that with respect to names, we will be accessing the phone numbers. The same way only here also. This IP address was labeled with DNS, your domain names, such that what happened is, for each and every IP address, the domain names will be helpful because they are directed, they are saved under domain names. Yes, so what happened is, with the help of this domain names, we were able to access each and every IP address. For the communication to take place, what happened is, the information should pass through 7 layers. What are the 7 layers available? Starts from presentation layer. Yes, presentation layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer and application layer, all 7 layers, right? So what happened is, your application layer is the 7th layer and your application layer has several applications and DNS is one among them. Your internet is based on IP address and not the domain names. And what this domain names is actually doing, this domain names is actually mapped to your IP address, such that we need not remember the long number, that is your IP address. To enable the use of domain names in a network, the DNS was used. So DNS names to IP address mapping must be consistent across the network to ensure what? To ensure interoperability. Thus, DNS provides domain name to the IP address mapping through name service. Yes, to know about DNS working, first we must know about IP address, we must know about URL, then about the DNS components. Let us see one by one. Just have a look here. The host computer, we type it as www.tngovernment.in. You know how this URL will be accessed? 35.173.69.207. Yes, from the DNS server, what happens is, the name server will fetch the corresponding IP address and it will be given to the host computer. While typing a web address, what happens? Example, say for example, while typing a web address, example www.tnschoolgerman.in, DNS, what does this domain name service do? It just translated into a machine friendly IP address, and that IP address is for your website and it directs your internet connection to the correct website. See, your internet protocol is simply a logical address in a network layer. Just like we have flat numbers, door numbers, yes, for an individual house from other in the same department, IP address is also used to find the host system in the whole network. What do we do with this IP address? We find the whole the independent system from the whole network. Say for example, if 50 systems are connected, each and every system will have their own IP address. Through that IP address only, we can access each and every system. Due to the increase of number of systems in a network, what we did is, we need more addresses. Yes, so what happened is, from version V4 we moved on to version V6. As the number of systems in a network started increasing, we started increasing the versions also. Next, IPv4 address. IPv4 address is a 32-bit unique address given to the computer system. As the network started increasing, we were in need of more addresses, such that what happened is, we moved from IPv4 to IPv6. Now let us move on with IPv4 address. Your IPv4 address is a 32-bit unique address given to a computer system. See, no two systems can have same IP address. Say for example, if one system is going to have one, no two persons can have same registration number, isn't it, for your exams. The same way only, if systems are there, P addresses must be there. If 20 systems are there, 20 addresses must be there. Yes, so how do we determine the address space? It can be determined by the total number of addresses that can be made by that protocol. The address space is the total number of addresses that can be made by the protocol. What is a protocol? Protocol is nothing but a set of rules. Your internet protocol, IP is going to be your internet protocol, and it is determined by the number of bits that the protocol use. If the protocol uses n bits, then the address space of that protocol would be 2 power n. So the number of addresses that can be performed in IPv4 is going to be 2 power 32 bits. Yes, there are two ways to represent your IP address. One is going to be binary notation, the other one is going to be dotted decimal notation. So how can you represent your 32-bit value now? Have a look here. 192.128.143.137.144. This is going to be an IP address which is actually called as dotted decimal notation. Now the previous one is going to be your binary notation. How can you do this binary notation? Convert 128 into binary format now. 143 as binary format, 137 as binary format, 144 as binary format, then represent. That is going to be our binary notation. Yes. You can ask me, what address is this? This is your IP address. For each and every system there will be an IP address like this. See, they have converted, see here, first byte, second byte, third byte, fourth byte, they have done decimal conversion, they have given this. Okay. Now let us move on with IPv6. What is IPv6 now? Your IPv6 is going to be 128-bit unique address given to the number system. What about IPv4? It was 32-bit. Fine. The number of addresses that can be performed using IPv6 is going to be 2 power 128. For that, for IPv4 it was 2 power 32. Yes. So 128 is actually divided into 8 16 bits now. 16 blocks. 8 16 blocks now. Yes. So each blocks can be changed into 4-digit hexadecimal separated by a colon. Yes. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. What it is actually, it is the address of the document on the internet. Actually your protocol is made up of 4 parts. One is going to be your protocol, HTTP. Yes. The other one is going to be your domain name or the host name. Your cms.tn.government.in. This is going to be your domain name or host name. The other one is going to be your folder name, where it is actually resided. Sites, default, files, press release. This is where it is actually. Then your file name. Yes, these are the 4 parts that it will have. Tell me, what are they? Protocols, host name, folders and file. Clear? Yes. Additional details can also be added to it. Yes, but the fundamental, the basic URL consists of only 4 parts. Your URL is actually classified into 2. One is going to be absolute URL, the other one is going to be relative URL. Absolute URL is just like a address in a address of a document. Say for example, if I wanted to post a letter to someone, if the letter does not have the complete details, if the address of the person whom I am sending, to whom I am sending, right, if the address is not specific or if the address is not very clear, you cannot send the address to the correct destiny easily. Isn't it? The same way only here also. Absolute address should contain those 4 parts. Yes, only then it can reach the end destination. So all the 4 parts is mostly important in your URL. Relative URL, only partial address of the document will be there in the internet. It may contain file name or file name with a folder name. In case if the file is actually in the same server related to the original document, if the file is there in the same server itself and the original documents is also there in the same server, then it will be easy for the person to access. Yes, for that only we will go for relative URL. DNS component consists of three things. One is going to be namespace, the other one is going to be name server, and the last one is going to be zone. The namespace. The namespace must be very unique and appropriate. The name should be selected from the namespace. The names can be organized in two ways. One is going to be flat namespace and the other one is going to be hierarchical namespace. See, flat namespace is the name that is being assigned to the IP address. They are not going to have, they are not going to be very specific or not. Okay, it will be very general. They do not have any specific structure. In this flat namespace, some meaningful names are being given to the IP address for accessing. So the major disadvantage of this is that it cannot be used for larger systems. Yes, and they need to be accessed and controlled centrally to avoid redundancy, the copy of the data, to avoid it, because the names are very general. There can be a redundant copy, there can be an additional copy also. So it is difficult to give names in the flat namespace. So to avoid this, what happened is we started moving on to hierarchical namespace. In this, what happened, the names will be divided into several parts based on the nature of the organization. The second may be represent the name of the organization, third may represent the department of the organization, and so on. So what happens, the major part is actually divided into smaller parts. In this way, the power to control the namespace can be decentralized. What is decentralized? Splitting up. Yes, centralized means one person will be controlling everything. The centralized authority can be given to nature and then name the organization and so on. So to achieve hierarchical namespace, domain namespace was designed. To obtain your hierarchical namespace, divide each and every part only. What happened? We started designing the domain namespace. What is this namespace actually? The name that is actually given to your IP address. So domain namespace was designed to achieve hierarchical namespace. Generally, what is hierarchy? It is a tree-like structure which has root on the top and it will have several branches, isn't it? So it will have root element on the top, and this tree can have maximum of 128 levels starting from the root taken to 0 to 127. See, this is going to be a root, and what happened now? We have just divided commercial separately, education separately, organization separately, advertisement separately. Yes, even we started dividing the mail IDs with respect to our countries into yahoo.co.in, UK, just like that. Okay. So the previous diagram represents the namespace where the root element is present on the top level, and it is actually represented as 0. It moves on till 127, and your root element is always a null string. What is null string? It is an empty string which has no value. The next level to the root is going to be your child node. What it is actually? A child node. Each node in a tree has a label and a domain name. See, this is going to be your hierarchy. Starts from root which has no value. Next, it begins with edu. The end is going to be your edu. This is also a label. To this, what happens? You will subdivide it with fhda, right? fhda.edu. This is a subdomain. Now what happens? atc.fhda. This is going to be another subdomain added. Next, the last one is going to be your challenger. Challenger.atc.fhda.edu. This is the domain name, and they are called as labels. All these are subdomains. They are combined together. A label, it is a string which can have maximum of 63 digits, 63 characters. Each node in that label should have different labels, thereby assuring that they are individual, they are independent, they are individuality of the domain names. In other words, labels are the names given to the domains. Domains is a subdomain tree in a domain namespace tree structure. The domain can be further divided into subdomains. We already saw that, isn't it? Subdomains. And this 1.2.6, this diagram explains the domain name and the label clearly, right? Challenger.atc.fhda.edu is a domain name which is obtained by reading the labels from the bottom to the top, separating each label by what? By dot. Domain names, it is a sequence of labels. We already knew it, right? So in domain names, what happens is sequence of labels are actually separated by what? They are separated by dot. The domain name is always read from the lower level to the higher level, from the leaf node to the root node, isn't it? As we write, it may start from the root node, but we never read it from edu.fhda. We read it like the Challenger dot, isn't it? So what happens? We always start from the leaf node to the root node. Since the root node is always represented null string, all the domains ending with dot. Basic rules of domain. Domain names can consist of alphabets A to Z, digits 0 to 9. Hyphens are allowed, but hyphens cannot be used as a first character. Spaces are not allowed. Special symbols such as dollar, exclamation, and underscore and so on are not permitted. Your domain names can have a maximum length of 2 and minimum length of 63 characters. The entire name may be at most of 253 characters long. Domain names are not case sensitive. It can be uppercase, it can be lowercase, or it can be a mix of both upper and lower. Now generic top level domain names. Top level domain name is the last part of your domain name. Yes, top level means what? Your root node only, no? So generic top level are used for generic purpose and they are maintained by IANA. Let us see COM for commercial organization, EDU for educational institutions, GOV for government, MIL for military groups, ORG for non-profit organizations, NET for networking organizations, INFO for information service providers. Have a look at this diagram. Starts with root node and you have COM here, commercial, organization, TNCERT, TNP, ESU, all those going to be organizations. You have NET as well, and top level domain .in India it represents, isn't it? So AC, MIL, CO, GOV, NIC, all this going to be our second level domains. We write like this, right? Yahoo.co.in, commercial.india, AC, right? TNTU, TN, all this is going to be our second level domains and they can be called as subdomains as well. Next, your country top level domain names. Country domain uses how many characters? 2 characters. Yes, IN for India, US for United States, FR for France, UK United Kingdom, CA Canada, AU Australia, LK Sri Lanka, BD Bangladesh, CN China, PK Pakistan, JP Japan, SG Singapore. Now let us move on with name servers. The information which needs to be stored in domain namespace is quite large. So single system would be inefficient and insufficient to store a huge amount of such a huge amount as responding to requests from all over the world. It also becomes reliable. It also becomes unreliable because in case of any failure, the data becomes inaccessible. What is reliability? Mean time to failure. Even if one system fails, the other system should exist, isn't it? That is reliability. Here they say that your name servers are going to be unreliable because if any failure occurs, the data becomes inaccessible. Can you access? It will just show you an error message, isn't it? The solution to this problem is to distribute the information among many computers. The best way to do that is to divide the entire space into many domains and subdomains. DNS also allows domains to be further divided into subdomains. By the solution, what happens is the solution to the problem is obtained and the hierarchy of the services is also maintained. What happens is when you give a vague name, when you give a common name for a process, what happens is it might, in case of there, if any error occurs, it will be damaging the whole of your DNS. Right? So what happens is if it is actually divided into subdomains, what happens is it will be easy for you to maintain. Yes, by the solution, by this the solution to the problem is obtained and the hierarchy of the servers is also obtained. Name servers store the data and provided to the clients when queried by them. Name servers are programs that run on physical system and store them all in the zone data. The next topic is zone. The entire namespace is actually has been divided into many different zones. It is the area up to which the server has access. See, zone is actually is defined as a continuous domain and subdomains. If the zone has a single domain, then zone and domain are going to be same. Every zone has server which contains a database called zone file. So every zone is going to have what? It is going to have server, and this server is going to contain what? Database, and this database is called as what? A zone file. Using the zone file, what we can do? The DNS server replies the queries about host in its zone. There are two copies of zone files available. One is going to be master file, the other one is going to be slave file. See, this is your root, and com is going to be your zone, because for each and every area it is going to be co.in, commercial India, commercial.uk, co.uk. It is going to be for UK, isn't it? So what do we do there? We differentiate, we specify with respect to zones. Then what do you have? You will have domains and you will have subdomains. Yes, and subdomains, if they are going to be common, then zone and subdomains are going to be same. Then comes your resolver. Domain name system is a client server application. DNS is a client server application. A host system needs to map domain name to the IP address or vice versa according to the call, and that work is done by the resolver. Resolver either asks server to provide information about the address. If it doesn't find any information, then it sends the request to other servers and so on. See, resolver, what does it do? It either asks the server to provide information about the IP address. If that information is not there, then what does it do is it sends the request to other address and so on. Once the resolver receives the mapping, it checks whether it is an error or a resolution. I mean whether the mapping is done, and provides the result according to that. How the DNS works. When the user enters the URL of URL consists of what? Protocol, domain name, folder name and file name in a browser. When he types the URL, what happens? The system first checks its domain name service cache for the corresponding IP address. If the IP address is found in the cache, then the information is retrieved from the cache itself. What is cache? Cache is your temporary storage, and it is going to be termed as the fastest storage as well. What happens? When you retrieve data from the server, the copy of the data will be found in the cache itself, right? When the copy of the data is going to be in the cache, then if I wanted to reuse it, when I re-access it, what will happen? The link will be obtained from the cache itself. So if it is not in the cache, then the system needs to perform DNS query. That is, the system needs to query the resolver about the IP address from the internet service provider. Each resolver has its own cache. If it is found in that, then the information is retrieved. If not, the query is passed to the next domain. See, this is going to be an DNS query, where is www.tncert.org. Now what happens? The browser gives the data. Now the resolver has to check what does he do? First he checks for the local server. In case if it is found, fine. If not, it will go for the root server. If it is not there, don't know, then it will be asked to the next person. Ask them, right? So ORG server it will be asking. Then if it is not there, then it will go for the other server where it is actually found. Yes, children? Your top level domain receives the request and direct the query to the name servers associated with the specific domain. Until the query is solved, it is passed on to the next level domains. At last, the mapping and the record are returned to the resolver, who checks whether the returned value is a record or an error. Then the resolver returns the record back to the computer browser, which is then viewed by the browser. Whenever we give www something, some links, right, some google.com or some yahoo.com or some gmail.com or something else, when we give, what happens? Sometimes if it is going to be there in the cache itself, you will obtain it very soon. In case if it is not there, what happens is the resolver will take that as a query and carry it to the local server. It will check first over there whether it is available. If it is not there, it will go for the other servers. It will check there. What does it do is, it just keeps mapping where the server is actually found. In case if it is found, it gives you the page. If not, it will send you an error message. This is all the resolver does. Yes, children, with this your DNS chapter is over. Yes, we can proceed with the rest in your next class. Thank you.